Hello, everyone. So currently, Final Fantasy XIV is in maintenance, as we are only a couple days away from the launch of Dawntrail. And so naturally, I've been getting a little itchy, getting that itch for FF14 and kind of speculating and things. So, I've been rewatching the trailer, watching some videos, reading some comments, and I kind of wanted to do one final little prediction or theory video right before the game comes out so I can have it on record, my own personal thoughts, and really just point out some stuff that I feel like I've noticed from the trailer, just some speculation, and I kind of want to start with the thing that I think is the most big that has been teased, but we don't know exactly what's going on. And that is to do with her. So this is our mysterious or enigmatic maiden that they've been calling her. And there's some really interesting things tied to that she's wearing. She's got an interesting symbol, and we also have seen the symbol for the raids. We know about the ascian symbols and all that, and I wanted to just bring up some of the things I've noticed with her, and then get into some other general thoughts that happened earlier. So there's a lot we can look at, but before we get into it, let's just establish the baseline of what we're talking about. For people that don't know, or people that do, a good refresher. So we have these ascian symbols, right? So we've obviously seen the ascians, members of the Convocation of 14. We haven't dealt with all of them, but we've dealt with many of them. We've met quite a few. And for people that don't know, the ascian symbols are the Final Fantasy XII Esper symbols, but they're upside down or reversed, and then they add a bit, usually. And so, for instance, we can see here La Habrea, right? You can see this kind of face, and they show with the red, which is kind of a real standout. But then when you flip it around, that would be this one, right? So the first one here, we can see the kind of the pointy bit on the bottom. We can see the pointy bit on the top, right? So they're just kind of reversed, and they focus on a different thing. But really, it's the same thing. It just kind of highlights in a different way because you have that. But that's the key, right? You can always kind of point to a thing and go, oh, that stands out. It has this little horn piece or these things that look like little spikes or eyes or whatever. And then you can connect it to the Final Fantasy XII Espers. And we know what some of these symbols represent, what title, what convocation title, as these are not obviously literal names, as we know. Selk, for instance, is a title. So we know what symbol a decent amount represent. We haven't always really met every character, but we do know which symbol is tied to which ascian, for the most part. And for the record, we do not know Azem's symbol. But you look at some of these, and it's pretty obvious. So, one thing I wanted to talk about, first off, is we can see the Enigmatic Maiden here has a decoration on her, like where, your belt would be. I think it's interesting that we can look at here and see that it feels like light and dark, both sides. And inside of her dress seems to be kind of like space galaxy vibes. But light and dark, but you can see here the kind of jagged, the pointy, kind of knife-looking thing in the middle. Very much like one of those bits that you would say highlight in red on that image we looked at. So let's bop out of here and take a look at some of these again. And so we know Logriff, we know some of these, right? But when I look at these, I happen to notice, and I, again, like a lot of weird Final Fantasy names, I'm not 100% on the pronunciation, but Tarot, Pashtarot, like tarot cards, I assume. But Pashtarot, if you look at this symbol, we have the little out here and pointy there. Seems kind of similar. And like I said, we've seen a lot of symbols that similar, but with a little extra flourish. But it seems similar to that. But if we're talking about symbols, and like I said, that's not exact, but it's pretty close. Again, we can see it from a different perspective here. And as you can see, when you flip it kind of around, well, now this is the FF12, and you can see there's much more of those little extra bits here. Just like she kind of has some extra little flourish over this. When you look at the FF12 one in the other direction, it does have a lot more little elements. So it kind of reminds me of the Pashtarot symbol, tarot symbol. But there's another symbol we've seen, of course, and that's right here, the Arcadian series, Arcadian. The Arcadian is our new raid series, and there's very clearly smack dab an ascian symbol in the background. Pretty weird, right? You don't necessarily feel like, you know, everybody's talked about how this looks like a GPU inside of a computer thing. But we have this symbol, and very clearly we have this is very defined, these kind of little horns pointing out. So if we look at the symbols here, I look at it and I feel like it's Altima. We got this little, the way these flare out really looks like that to me. And we can see it here in the FF12 Esper symbols. I'm going to go back to that. These really looks like it to me. So I feel like this is Altima, Altima, not Ultima with a U, like Ultima weapon, but the Ultima symbol looks like this to me. And it's funny because we know with the raid series, what's been described here is essentially like a tournament arc raid series. And it's very intriguing that something so, you know, I guess it would come across kind of lighthearted in a way if you were to have a kind of a tournament. We see this in the live letter as well, where it is just a full-on arena, right? There's an announcer in this and everything. So this is full-on, you know, entertainment. Nothing, it doesn't seem like anything too serious here. But it does seem to be represented, I think, by Ultima, the Ultima ascian symbol. So do we know anything about these characters, either Ultima or Pashtarot? Well, as far as FF14, just a little bit. So Ultima was introduced in patch 2.3. but there's really not much there. Like I said, they just mention, they're kind of just talking about the Warrior of Light. Obviously, 2.3 is very early on. But what's interesting is their mask is confirmed to be one of the masks that Gaius has collected. Now, an important thing to note with that is Gaius was an Ascian hunter. But and I believe there's a old Q&A from some FanFest or some Japanese magazine, or I don't know where. I remember they were doing some lore and even hinted at, like, doesn't necessarily mean they're all dead, because as we kind of know with the Ascians, usually they've been, killed with white orsite, trapped in the Crystal Tower, which has properties similar to that. Usually you got to do something. You can't necessarily just shoot them, And so they could lose their physical form, drop their mask, but still drift off and come back. They're not necessarily, their whole spirit, their soul is not necessarily dead. So Altima, the mask has been collected, but we don't know if they're necessarily gone permanently. But what's very interesting about Altima is you can see their role in the convocation. Altima was given the position as advocate of the arts. Now, if we look at a little more, Altima is known as Altima the Composer, advocate of aesthetics and the myriad arts. Now, I don't know if that immediately triggers something in your mind, but for me, I saw that and I was like, wait, what? Oh my God. Because of something that we have confirmed for just a little bit in terms of a very normal thing we collect in this game. And that is right here, tomestones. What are the new tomestones we are getting? We are getting the Allegan Tomestones of Aesthetics. And I started looking into like the symbols and thinking about things just recently. I had known we were getting Tomestones of Aesthetics for a long time and thought nothing of it per se. We've gotten comedy, things like that, and it didn't, not necessarily like a huge deal. But when I saw that there was a symbol that reminded me of Altima, and Altima literally represents aesthetics as the title, I was like, wait a minute, is that a big hint? Is that like some crazy huge connection to make right now? And I kind of think so. Again, we don't know for sure, but being the advocate of aesthetics and arts, the fact that our new tomestone is called the Tombstone of Aesthetics, I can't help but feel like that me thinking that we have something that looks like the Altima symbol, it makes me more confident that it's not making a stretch. Because again, everything, you don't know, like, is it right exact? Are they really going to dig into that side of the Ascians? Are we done with it? You don't really know. But when I started looking at the symbols and then it popped in my head like, oh my God, we have Tomestones of Aesthetics coming. It made me feel like Altima will be a relevant part of the bigger, grander reveal in Dawntrail. And again, we are looking at the raid series. So when I say the Elegant Tombstone of Aesthetics and the Altima symbol may prove very relevant, it may be relevant for the raid series, is what I'm thinking. So not necessarily 7.0 per se. We might have to wait until we start getting into the raid story, because obviously sometimes things can connect a little more, but The raid series gives you connect, but is usually fleshing stuff out, as opposed to needing to be directly continuing from the main story. So I could see it not being relevant in 7.0, but I do think this symbol is Ultima's symbol, and I think the tomestones are named the Tomestones of Aesthetics for Ultima. And so I think this female Ascian is going to play a part going forward, and will be one of the Ascians we learn about, and we will get confirmed that, oh, Gaius had the mask. That didn't really mean anything. He may have claimed it, but never sealed her or whatever. And then, like I said, of course, we have Pashtarot, or Pashtarot. He briefly shows up, mentioning Zodiark, and that's it. We have this little shadowy image. It's definitely a male Ascian. But Pashtarot was given to the Preserver of Discipline and Order. And their full description here is Pashtarot, the Arbiter, Conservator of Order and the Collective Will. So I think that's what the Enigmatic Maiden looks more similar to. So I feel like her symbol seems similar to the Pashtarot symbol, and the raid symbol seems similar to the Ultima symbol. But, as I'm saying, Pashtarot, as we've seen from that cinematic, was kind of a big dude, not this maiden, so I'm not saying she literally is that. But one thing I wanted to, or is him, I don't think that's the case, but the symbol does seem recognizable, and I bring this up because Yoshi P said during the media tour, in the group session, multiple people have brought this up, content creators from North America, because during the group session there, Yoshi P said one of the main pieces of lore to keep in your mind was, do you know all the names of the Convocation of 14? Which I assume means their titles, so we know, Elidibus, Emet-Selch, etc. Those names. So, as you can see, Jesse Cox brought it up in his video. Complete Mists of the Realm, and remember all the names of the Convocation of 14. That's the main piece of lore he recommended knowing off the top of your head. And so to say that, I feel like the Convocation titles have to be relevant. And again, I feel like we definitely have a match for the Ultima symbol, and Pashtarot is similar-ish. Similar, definitely a different person, so a little more iffy. But I feel like it might be right, and that symbol does represent that. But that brings up a lot of questions, of course. Okay, so if we're supposed to keep in mind the members of the Convocation, we know a decent number of them, right? Logarith, Mitron, Emet-Selch, we got Fandaniel, Hermes, Nabrialis, Igarim, La Habrea, Elidibus, Azem. A lot of those off the top of our head, we're oh yeah, we know, we dealt with them, whatever. Or we know what they're up to. So, there isn't too many left that we have nothing on. There's never been anything developed. But in this new storyline that we're beginning, because we ended the traditional arc of Hydaelyn and Zodiark, it makes me really believe that they're not just going to continue the story, because the whole point is it ended, and I feel like if you just make it let's fill out the Convocation, and it almost becomes we're just continuing the story. You're supposed to know, if the Ascians are everything that's important to the final big reveal, the expansion and stuff, you're kind of just continuing the story. And I feel like that doesn't feel like the good finale, that you've moved on from that arc entirely. But he has said these names are relevant, and I feel like they are, and I feel like we're seeing the symbols. But my speculation would be, is it possible that with this symbol seeming maybe similar to the Pashtarot symbol, and this light and dark, obviously she's important. What if there's a big twist, right? Because they put that ascian symbol that really looks like Altima right there. That one's really easy to suss out, right? This is more iffy, but that one was front and center. What I'm saying is, I wonder if there could be a twist where the titles still matter, but we're not necessarily dealing with literally the same people. What can I mean by that? Well, we know their titles. Meaning, Emmet Selk is not the Emmet Selk we know is not the only Emmet Selk, right? There were predecessors. So it goes back, we weren't at the very beginning of the founding of the convocation, because previously there were people with these positions, right? Azem was filled by Vana, for instance, who we know as Hydaelyn. And then Azem, our character, the full version of them, took that spot. So we haven't really been there since the beginning of the convocation. And we see Solution 9 in this game, a very advanced society that I'm assuming has been around for a very, very, very long time, predating most things, and is got advanced because they never had their progress halted. If that's the case, then you never know, right? Could there be something weird where we're seeing there's a connection to the beginning of the convocation, and that's why some of these symbols exist, but it actually predates what we knew? Or I think an interesting little twist could be, and I could see them doing this, because this would be a real twist on keep these names in mind, but there could be a connection where, because the society is very presumably ancient, and that's what has made them very futuristic, because as I said, they were able to advance and develop all their stuff without being impeded. What if they just knew of the convocation? Right? Think of it that way. What if we got people involved that were maybe ancients are tied to it, and that was their government? They knew the convocation and how their government operated, and when they created this bubble society, locked in this, you're going to live forever in Solution 9ville, what if that was hey, this government structure we got is really great. We have this thing called the Convocation of 14. We nominate people who are the best at a specific thing that we believe will have our best interest at heart. What if they just copied that idea? I think that's a interesting possibility. So when we see an Altima symbol, or potentially a Pashtarot symbol on her, maybe she does fill the role of Pashtarot, but she has nothing to do with the Convocation of 14 Pashtarot that we would have known as an ascian, back in A Realm Reborn. Or whatever. Right? It could just be they use those titles. Maybe we meet someone who's literally the Emmet Selk of Solution 9. They just have someone that fills that role. They don't have to be tied to the literal same people we knew, because technically in the real world, there could be a Convocation of 14 that refer to themselves as a little this and stuff. It'd be weird, but technically you can do it, right? It's just if you know of an idea, you could copy it or pay tribute to it. So I'm kind of feeling like this technology sci-fi society of Solution 9. And again, the raid might be the better thing to kind of keep in mind there, because obviously it's super high tech, and that's where we see the Altima symbol. Possibly we're not dealing with Altima that was on the convocation that we knew, right? We knew the Altima that shared a seat with Elidibus and the like, that we had a relationship with. It could have been some splinter agents that happened to live, or some ancient society that knew of the Ascians or knew of the Convocation and kind of copied their ideas. And so this Ultima symbol is kind of a fake out, right? They have an Ultima, but it could just be some jolly Santa Claus looking guy that is super nice and hosting a fun tournament, but he goes by Ultima because he's in, charge, has a role in the Solution 9 government. So that was one of the main things, the main thing really I wanted to talk about is I do feel like we're seeing Ultima and likely Pashtarot symbols here. And so you could say maybe these are straight up ascians that were part of the Convocation that we knew, and that's going to be what the main story and the raid story are about. They have deep connections, and it's kind of just continuing the saga, even though Heidel and Zodiac are supposed to be dead, or that storyline's dead. It's not. It's like, oh, we wrapped that up, but really we just kind of continue on just without them. But really the same kind of idea of that it's always Ascian, and we're just going to keep up with doing that. Maybe. But I wanted to bring up the possibility that while I think these symbols are recognizable, I really think there's a high likelihood that there's a big twist to them where Solution 9 or something just has its own people that go by those titles that aren't literally from the same Convocation we knew. Now, a couple other odds and ends that I wanted to go with, and this really, we're going to look at the trailer. I'm not going to rewatch it with the volume, but I want to scrub through it and point out a couple things that struck me as we move on. Oh, by the way, I did want to mention there's one moment here where you could see Alphino grabs Alize, and I think that's very cute. They constantly feel like they're having the twins kind of catch each other and rescue each other. But we get to... And obviously we have our normal stuff. We see the... But a lot... Things start popping off in this trailer, right? It starts very nice. It's very much like you're going on the nice little adventure. Alright. I do want to get into one theory if we're making predictions and stuff here. This is the Dawnservant. So we know the main focus of this expansion, or we know the basic setup. I feel like not the main focus. I feel like the intro focus that will spin out of control at some point is trying to find a new ruler to take over as Dawnservant. I want to say that I really think being the Dawnservant is going to prove to be a sucky job. I'm just going to be blunt. I think being the Dawnservant is going to be like, oh my god, you got screwed so hard. You're the Dawnservant? Wow, that sucks. That they keep it a secret. The true nature of the Dawnservant is something that's kept a secret in this culture, but really nobody should want to be the Dawnservant. And I think it's in the title. Servant. And with Solution 9 looming overhead, where this society, more primitive society is, I really have a feeling that the Dawnservant is meant to like keep the secret of Solution 9's existence and the City of Gold and how to travel there a secret. And they're literally like the servant for the Solution 9 high-tech overlords. And it's being the Dawnservant is like, you get to rule your little, more primitive tropical jungle kind of area. But you are really our number one whipping boy if you are the Dawnservant. And you run things exactly the way we say. You don't have control. I really feel like Solution 9 is going to end up being like the controlling party. And so being the Dawnservant just means you have to essentially almost be like a slave to these immortal people living it up in their high-tech city, and it's gonna suck. I really feel like being the Dawnservant's gonna be bad, and part of my thought is this guy has a lot of adopted children, and including Wuklamant, and they're trying to be Dawnservant, and part of me wonders if it's actually kind of sinister on his part. Maybe he's a loving dad, adopted father, but part of me wonders if the reason why he adopts a bunch of kids is because he doesn't just want his own biological children to automatically take over. He wants to have adopted children that he can almost have pit for the throne to help it, make it so if he only had one biological child and called it a day, they would be the natural successor. They would have the clear path, a lot of support, and he wouldn't want his biological kid. He does have biological children, I believe. They've said a lot of his children are adopted. I don't think all of them are. I believe one of the people trying for the throne is biologically his child, if I heard that right. But I have a feeling he doesn't want any biological children to take the throne, and he might be kind of sketchy. His I adopt a wide, diverse group of kids sounds like a very positive thing, and I wonder if it's going to be revealed that it's kind of sinister, and that he's hoping one of them becomes Dawnservant because he'd be happier if they ended up with the shitty life and not a biological kid. I feel like that could be a dark twist. Let the cat boy be in charge. I don't want my biological kid, but who cares if a cat has to live a horrible life? I feel like he might be a bad dad. I'm gonna be honest. A bad adopted dad. And Wuklamant's gonna be really sad when she finds it out. Okay, here's when things start getting a little weird here, right? So yes, the City of Gold. Obviously, during the trailer, this gets crazy. It's presented like this gate is the gateway to the City of Gold. I could see that being literal. I could also see that being too obvious, that they're messing with you. Because they love a good twist, Yoshi P loves to say something or show something and then laugh during a live letter or a fan fest, and he's laughing at you because he knows something you don't. But if you take it at face value, this very much feels like it would make sense to be the gateway to the City of Gold. The City of Gold is actually, could literally just be Solution 9. The City of Gold is just living in this immortal city where you can't die, This high-tech future city that's so protected you can't die. You feel like maybe this is a couple of Lalafels that are literally having to leave their family, they know forever, but because they're not going to die. She's crying because I'm never going to die, but all my family who never comes to this gate, they're all going to die. I'm going to outlive all of them. That's my thought. And the City of Gold closes. It's very hard to get into, I presume. They haven't opened the gates, I bet, in a long time. And so everyone else is left to die that doesn't fit in. But one thing I wanted to point out is Aaronville here. In the live letter, as we go through the characters, Aaronville gets a little note as well. Okay. Now let's look at Aaronville. A member of the Gleaners Guild ship in Charlian. Aaronville hails from the continent of Tyrol and has taken on the role of guide for the Warrior of Light during the Rite of Succession. Though he appears to harbor reservations after learning the contest involves the fabled City of Gold, the source of his misgivings remains unclear. So, when he finds out about the City of Gold, he's like, oh, I don't like the sound of this. We see in the end of the final patch, him and Wuklamant obviously are supposed to be like, they were BFFs as kids, is the vibe. Maybe there's a crush situation. Hard to say for sure. But they were really close. But he seems very standoffish of Wuklamot. In a way, he seems embarrassed because she's like very outgoing and he's like more reserved. And I think you're supposed to just take it that way. But I wonder if when they say he finds out, or after learning, I wonder if by that point in the patch he actually already did learn that. And he's not, or if not, at some point during this expansion, he learns about it. And he's not happy about Wuklamot taking part in the Rite of Succession because he doesn't want her to become Dawnservant because of my earlier prediction that being the Dawnservant sucks because you are essentially living in service to these kind of immortal a-holes in Solution 9. And he knows, he figures that out. He knows the City of Gold is Solution 9, and that the gate takes you there. And when he realizes that, he's like, oh no, I know the truth of what the Dawnservant really has to go through in their life. And Wuklamot's an outgoing, she likes the outdoors. She's going to hate having to be a servant to this, different society that she has no connection with. And so that's why he ends up having misgivings, is because he feels like Wuklamot would be happier not being Dawnservant. And she's, his best friend, supposedly. And therefore doesn't want her to take part, but she believes, she wants it. And so she keeps trying, but he's kind of really unenthusiastic, and they probably fight. She probably gets upset at him at some point in the story because he doesn't support her, but he doesn't support her because he cares about her and thinks her being Dawnservant is a negative to her life, not a positive. That's one of my big predictions. I feel like that's almost the one I feel like is the most safe prediction. I think it's really likely. Yeah, and then in the trailer, of course, we see literally high-tech army, which I think is a really funny thing that they showed in the trailer. I actually showed it, but we literally see them like murdering people in the town, like across Tuliolal and stuff. Like just straight up, like they come to like burn the villages or something, right? That's really crazy. I'm surprised they showed this part. This I feel like is a bit spoilery. Though without context, obviously we don't know. Maybe there's a twist, right? Maybe the future people are the good ones and they're doing this because these people are... I don't think that's the case, that the locals in Tuli are the bad guys, but yeah, I was surprised they showed this part, but it makes me very excited because it's like, whoa, where are we going? Oh yeah, and one thing, so we see this right here, right? This, what do you call this? Off the tip of my tongue, I don't have the right word for it. Goblet, chalice, hourglassy thing. But it kind of feels cuppish to me, like a glass to me. And we have a shot here. I don't know if we've passed it. No, right here. This to me looks like one of the people, a Mamulja, dying. I think this is straight up a death scene, like 100%, right here. I think this could be a death scene. We see someone like handing the cup, but I almost feel like this is like a kind of a meant to throw you off like image. And this person getting like handed this is going to end up being like part of the ritual. The challenge to become Dawnservant is like getting this, right? Like you need this item to potentially open the City of Gold, to then be able to walk through the City of Gold, and the person who walks through the City of Gold first into Solution 9, or the future city, or whatever's going on there. However, maybe that gateway doesn't literally take you to Solution 9. I can see that getting there separately, but it takes you to the City of Gold, which is connected somehow. And like the first one there kind of wins the race because if you go with my theory about being the Dawnservant job kind of sucking, you need to learn about the relationship between, you know, Tuliol, Tyrol overall, and Solution 9. You need to know that relationship to be the Dawnservant. And this is going to be like the key. But I have a feeling, I don't think one of the Mamul Jaws who they've introduced in either, there's a two-headed one and a one-headed one, I don't think they're going to become Dawnservant, right? I don't think the story's going to go that way. And I feel like you see it glowing. I almost feel like the first person to get this is going to die. That, like, getting this is like a big test of your will or something, and we're gonna find out, like, this is one of, like, the kind of bad guys, right? He's one of the mean bully Mamul Jah, and we have some bios here. So for instance, like this guy, the first promise of Tuliolal is Zoral Jah serves as the commander of the Landsguard, the redoubtable warriors who preserve the nation's peace. His martial prowess is rumored to rival even that of the Dawnservant, with many regarding him as the foremost candidate. So, like, he's going to be, like, the real tough guy. Like, I deserve it, because I'm the biggest badass. And he's going to get there, and he's going to be, like, the fodder to, like, realize, like, oh, man, this right of succession is serious. Like, they're going to kill someone competing for the throne. They're going to have someone die to up the stakes, to make people go, like, all the other candidates be like, wait, what? Someone died trying to get the throne? And people are going to realize this isn't just some fun and games way to prove your worth. Like, this is getting serious. I feel like someone's going to die, and it's going to be, like, the first person that gets that hourglass thing. Whatever you want to call it. So yeah, we see it. We obviously see it glowing, going crazy, and in location. I really think that's going to be, like, the key to opening the City of Gold. I think that makes the most sense. So yeah, those are some of my predictions, thoughts from the trailer and the recent live letter. Noticing those symbols, looking stuff up. You know, it gets your mind racing. Like I said, one thing I love about FF14 is it is a game where I feel like the story and characters and lore is interesting enough, and knowing the writers, I feel like to keep you guessing enough that I find it really fun to speculate on. And with the game down in maintenance right now, I figure some people might be looking for some content, wanting to talk and give their own opinions about things. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to get my stuff on record, even just for my own sake, to see how bad I did. Because obviously a lot of this is going to be wrong, if not all of it. As I said, I really think it'd be Aaronville finds something out about the City of Gold on the Right of Succession that makes him uneasy and worried about Wook Lamont, and they start having relationship troubles because of it. I think that's, like, the safest bet out of anything I've said. But I do think the symbols match, but exactly what way they take those ascian symbols, I don't know. But as I said, I kind of presented, like, 3 options, and I think... But I could see them going in a wild direction. I don't think anything is really safe there. Anything is going to be super obvious. It's just like, oh, they're ascians. I don't think it's going to be that simple. But we will see. Like I said, right now, when I'm doing this video, we're like 48 hours from the expansion launching. So obviously we'll find out a lot very soon. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. If you have any feelings, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And we'll see you next time.